Still playing Clippers here, and, well, again, the choices. Almost everybody took ports. And we're beginning to see the ports dropping in value. But there were a couple of interesting ones, like this one, where it's 1, 2, 3, 4 companies hitting a 4-point port is still 16 points. That's as good as a double 8. I don't know how that escaped people's attention. Likewise, the Japanese slipped into this one, which is a double going to a triple 5, which is going to be worth 15 points. Other people moved to less valuable things before that went. The one exception in terms of thinking they need to do things more, well, their options were to buy a port card. They needed to buy a card, take a card basically, because they were out of ports, the French up here. One option would be to take the port card, and they've got some kind of iffy things, like a couple of 6-point ports over here near the back end of the game, where it's really unlikely to get anything from them. But instead they took the 3 times movement, and they bought a brancher, and they're planning on shipping blue back up to New Guinea via Australia. They need this. Getting the extra points for that is huge, so the $3 for that, and then foregoing the $1 that they get for connecting Australia. If it was doubled to $2, well, that's the cost of the 2 times card. So the 5 times card becomes more valuable. But then I look at it and I say, the hell with it. If I got to pay $1 to get $1, I might as well get the extra piece, use the 3 times card. So for the first time, it becomes valuable here. All right, well, let's start with the joinment. We see that first push through, even though nobody terribly wanted it to happen. The red line advanced because of the extra money to be made. A couple of people pushed it for that. Britain played this one, which kind of is a disadvantage because what did it allow? And here they were just stupid. It allowed America to make the next play. And America says, no, I don't want New Guinea. What the hell? That was just a mistake by the Brits. Clear and simple. Playing alone, playing the multiplayer this way, those mistakes are a little more common than they are elsewhere. And we do see the French making their run for New Guinea as well. And here we're getting close to the very end. There's only a few red pieces left. Blue, well, once they hit here, they're not sealed off. They can still expand. So blue is still very viable. Red's just got a couple of pieces left, though. Most interesting of the red choices is what France chose to do, swinging it down towards the Solomons. Now, there were enough pieces when that was played, not quite, that I thought maybe they could make it to New Guinea. They could not have. So they also made a mistake, and they advanced the blue. They get points for the Solomons, though, so it's not that terrible. They were kind of looking at, that'd be cool, rather than, just boning the red here. Japan is trying to push them into the Marshalls, which is their double space, which they've only been able to score once. And they would really love to see another scoring coming in there. All right, well, that's the end of this turn. And we pass this and start over with the Brits. And we're seeing a lot of mistakes here. Hey, that's life. It's a new game for me. I'm not used to the thinking involved in it. Well, at least new for a long time. So it's not like an 18XX or specifically an 1830 where I'm pretty familiar with what mistakes to avoid. Here I'm going to make them. And in terms of picks, the Brits, having seen the value of the French pick, decided to rectify things. They bought a Clipper and the 3X card, and they're planning on shifting down and grabbing New Guinea. There's nothing anybody can do about it. They have the anchor. They're going to use the last 3 red pieces for this. And then they have some stronger control over where the blue pieces take them, which is kind of cool too. What was the problem? Well, they didn't get to play one of these, which is clearly going to be worth 10 points. There's 5-point spaces with two shipping zones in them. This is bad for Japan, who thought they were going to hook up the Marshalls. They're not going to get that chance. It's bad for the U.S., who thought they were going to hook up the Solomons. That's not going to happen. Such is life. The fact that it hurts so many people and gives them this kind of additional advantage with the blue was just too tempting not to take. As to the other person who didn't take a port, it's the French. They can't. They took the 5 counter. They're looking at connecting up New Guinea and maybe making. They're making another action. It's just what they're going to do. What they didn't do was they didn't pick this up. They didn't see any real value to that. The question for them is, do they want to hook the Solomons up, or do they just want to bone it into Santa Cruz, where other people can throw things into, but it doesn't really make much. Well, actually, if it becomes a 15-point location, because there's 3 companies in there, it is important, and it is a significant issue because they won't have a port there. On the other hand, there's an 8-point bonus the U.S. has here. I don't feel like the U.S. is doing that terribly well. It feels like they've gotten kind of screwed over, though, recently. All right, start with the Brits and their big movement. Well, that's the end. The Brits made their shoot down. The U.S. had to play and had to add to the blue line. There was nowhere else to add. Nobody took this last blue fleet, so there was no branching allowed. It looked like there was 2 branches, but there weren't really, because red was taking this line. Then the French shot up to here, and blue is actually blocked here. They can't go this way. That's already claimed by the Brits. This one's all fully claimed. There's nowhere else to go. All the blue fleets are plugged up here. The other one's not on the board. Game's over. And this is exactly how the game ends. When somebody has to make a play, in this case it was the Japanese, and cannot, the game ends. It wouldn't matter even if Germany was sitting on this and had paid for it. It wouldn't matter. Japan would still have ended the game. And that's kind of cool. All right, so I'm going to score the points here. We can see money-wise, it doesn't look like there's too many huge runaways. The Brits have a big pile of cash, actually. They might be in the lead with money by a decent amount. But the Japanese look like they're up there, too. We got some people who are kind of falling behind, though. Looks like the Germans might be a little weak. The U.S. maybe, I don't know. And I'll spread this out. And not that I don't know how much spreadsheeting there's going to be, but I'll make a quick score sheet for you and come back. Okay, so I've come up with the final scores here, and at the trailing end of the pack is Germany with 122 points. And the Germans, they didn't get all their chits out, and they just didn't get any of the real power connections set up. You can see out of their 8s up here, they didn't, they really had a total of 2 in their double and only 1 in this other one. And elsewhere, they were kind of trimmed down in an area where 2 connections was the norm. They didn't have any really rich connection setups that I could see. This one is 3, but and they were quite far behind. The Japanese and the UK are at 167 and 169, with the UK coming, or the Great Britain in this case, coming out a little ahead. Different strategies. The Japanese got all their markers out. Money-wise, they were approximately the same. The Germans and the French were kind of behind in cash, but everyone else was in the mid-20s or all to 30 range. So there was definitely more. You have to remember, these were the guys who got kind of lots of, who got the early choice of, do you want a port or do you want nothing, or do you want the 3 times shit that gets you no money? What are you going to do? And they took ports kind of maybe more than the others, the French and Japanese. And they ran out earlier. The only other person who managed to run out was the U.S. Some of the others, I think, were given different options earlier. And then when we get to the top players, well, U.S. came in second and France came in first. U.S. got 190, France 219. And the U.S. certainly made an error in terms of the Solomons. There should have been a red thing there. They could have managed that at other times. The French, though, have proven sort of this, make your route, get your good ports down, get them where you want them, and then use your tiles to force your route that you want. Get the dominance that you want and then use it. And I think that's actually probably the way to go. Because if you set the route up before you get the dominance, everybody else is going to jump on it too. You don't get a bonus off of it. On the other hand, if, while we saw some of the other players were able to kind of grab a little bit more money early on, especially the Brits had a pile at 28. They were the highest in pure cash. It doesn't make that much of a difference. The money that you're making is so much less important than having good targets to drive towards. Now, the French may have gotten away with some lucky things because they didn't have ports to put out, so they could at least emotionally afford driving to their double ports a little harder than other people could. What if the other people had? Well, then they would have some significant point losses that the French did not suffer. The French basically scored off everything. Yes, there are some at 6 points, but would it be worth $4 to shift that to a 10-pointer? No, that breaks you even, right? So you'd need better than that to score. So I feel like, yes, they could have done that a little earlier and grabbed one of the slightly more valuable things, but they were better off driving to their ports that they want. Therefore, I think, although that new early money is really attractive, at some point or another, earlier than most of my players did, you probably want to start putting down those ports. And if they let you take the good ones, then you can drive the game using the big 5x and 3x counters later on when money's not going to be that important to you. Whereas, if they fight you for them, well, at least you got the jump on that. They're going to follow you, so maybe you get an extra counter that way. All right, well, I'll come back with the actual review of this. And this one's going up.